What's up, everybody? Hope you're having an amazing day out there. I'm your host Phil, and today's video I want to showcase my current pedal board setup. I want to walk through the different pedals, why I got them on the board, and of course we're going to talk about why I'm actually shooting this video. More of that right after the intro clip has rolled on. Let's go. Welcome again to today's video. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Now, as said before, I want to showcase in this video what kind of pedals I got on my pedal board over here, which is right in front of me on the table. That's why I'm pointing always down there. Yeah, and that's also the reason why this smartphone over here is pointing right at there. So sorry for that being in frame. I cannot do it otherwise. Nonetheless, yeah, the reason why I want to showcase this is that I recently bought myself the NAMM player, which is now on pre-order right now from Dimehead. It's the very first unit, very similar to the ToneX, which I got over there, which is capable of loading NAMM profiles, so amp capture profiles basically, and I'm super excited, and that will shape my entire pedal board. I will build my pedal board around that NAMM player. So I just wanted to kind of do a snapshot in history, kind of take you on the road, what I got over here on my pedal board so far, why I have made the decisions that I chose so far. But before we do that, let's first talk about the philosophy behind running a pedal board based sound. Now, if you are anything like me, I play guitar in a small local thrash metal band called Tempest. We do regular gigs, so around about 10 to 12 gigs a year, and often we have to drive a considerable amount, at least for German standards, you know, like 600 kilometers or sometimes 300 kilometers. It's not that far off. So when you are driving, you don't have like a huge bus where you can pack in all of the stuff. And sometimes you also have to bring your merchandise with you. You have to bring your cabinets eventually with you. So everything which you can do in order to scale down your setup is a godsend, basically. Now, over the years, I came to the conclusion that as much as I love all of my tube amps and as much as I love all of my 4x12s, the way to go for us as a band is using in-ear monitoring. Now, I'm going to make a dedicated video on our in-ear monitoring rack at some point in time because we get a lot of compliments from other bands. But, however, in order to complement the downsized, scale of our in-ear monitoring rack, we also have to have like smaller guitar setups, and this is where pedal board based setups come into play. Now, the market has shifted radically in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, especially after the pandemic. There was kind of a trend shifting towards smaller units, which can pack a hole punch, like preamps. We got the IRDX from Friedman. Now, I think actually on this very day, they released their IRD, which is the Dirty Shirley mode. We got the ToneX, which of course was a game changer, as everybody's saying, and especially now with the yesterday launch of the ToneX 1. We got Newer Lamp Modeler, which now has finally its first hardware platform in form of the NAMM player. The Kemper Profiler player, I think it's called. You get the point. So we're kind of downsizing our rigs already. And yeah, I was no different than anybody, jumping on that hype train. I think I actually jumped a little bit earlier on that train and kind of tried to explore different possibilities. So I got quite some extensive experience with running a few setups. And yeah, due to that experience, I built up my catalog of different pedals, which I tried out. And with that, I'm going to switch over my OBS setup to my pedal board over here. What you're seeing over here is everything in one unit. What this does, and this is the special thing, this allows me to play through a pedal board based setup, which is quite small, like it's not that big. Look at my hands. I'm not that big of a guy, and my hands are quite small. And this pedal board's not that big, but it allows me to run a dual setup where I got both the IR loaded setup, so I can run that straight into the PA or our in-ear monitoring system, for a matter of fact. And I also have a PowerAmp, so I can run this also into a cabinet. So that makes us totally flexible in any kind of venue situation where you either have, like a PA where you just smack in your signal right in there and have your in-ear monitors, but you also want to have the mic'd up situation for the front row, or maybe the venue has 4 bands playing and not all of them have in-ear monitoring. So what you want to do is, you don't want to be the only guy who says, oh, by the way, I need in-ear monitoring and you have to take care of that. No, you want to be able to address the situation at the venue. You want to use the same cabinet setup as everybody does. You know, just plug in your amplifier in there, get your sound. He already got the stuff mic'd up and he's good to go. Happy FOA, happy gig. Yeah, so that's what I basically built all of this around of. Now, let me go through the single components, or before we go through the single components, let me just show you what this sounds like. Now, what I got prepared over here is one track which has the mic'd setup. So I got here a microphone on my 2x12 Harley Benton Vintage 30 cabinet, which is microphoned up by an SM57. And I got another track which has the feed off of the IR loader. Now let me quickly do something over here on my PC. Record, arm, lead, and follow. So that way I can switch between the two. Now this is the sound which I'm getting straight out of the pedal board. And this would be the signal which is coming straight out of the mic'd up cabinet. Now that, in my book, is a really good tone. I really like that a lot. It has that thrash girth going on. And I always get compliments that it really sounds good from, you know, both audience and, you know, musician police, as I like to call them. Yeah, so what do we have over here as a setup? The nice thing is I am 100% wireless. So my in-ears are wireless, my guitar is wireless, so I can move around as much as I like, at least, you know, within certain range, because I'm also the lead vocalist. I have a lot to focus on, you know, I have to be on the mic, you know, mic technique has to be proper, so any cable which distracts me in my movement would be a nightmare to deal with. So I got the Line 6 G10. This is the first generation. I bought this as soon as this came out. I never had any issues with this thing. This is absolutely superb, and this is super reliable. Never had any kind of dropouts. Of course, I'm always pretty close because I'm tied to the mic, but I also like to run around the stage in times when I'm not playing actually, and also partially going into the crowd and playing guitar. Never had any drops out. This is super. I modded this so that I am using a 9-volt plug instead of the small micro USB plug. So there's that. That goes then straight into this wah pedal, which is the Mark Tremonti signature wah by Morley. This was the very first edition of that signature wah. I think he has a new one by now, but this is the bomb. This wah over here is absolutely incredible. I love it. I mean, I kind of put my feet over here, you know, on the table. So I'm just going to try to emulate so that you get a feel of how the wah is actually opening and closing. So it has a really nice sweep. It has that, I would call it that Kirk Hammett style of wah going on. By the way, I'm going to now switch again to the impulse response output. So, because I like that sound a little bit more. Okay, from the wah, we're going into the Decimator, the ISP Decimator G-String II, which is, in my opinion, the absolute best gate out there. The reason for that is that it can deal with those tight percussive chugs in a reasonable fashion. It's not super tight, but it also allows for a lot of sustain. you know. And this kind of stuff is super important for me when it comes to, you know, like solos, lead, at the end of a song when you're playing and you're strumming and you want that feedback to go over, like I just did it over here with the cabinet. Alrighty, from there on, we're going further. Let me check into the MXR M77, the Custom Baddest Modified OD. This is by far the absolute best boost for any 5150 type circuit, in my personal opinion. I love it. It has a lot of cool functionality. The 100 Hertz knob, which is this one over here, which takes away the low end, is super. Let me turn it off and on so that you kind of get an idea of what's going on. So it really gives that girth into there, and, you know, playing around with the 100 Hertz, you can maybe even boost or crank the low end even more. I like to have it fairly tight set up because, you know, the low end is something for the bass to handle. Yeah, that goes then into the AMT P-Lead. I have been made aware of this pedal by a video of Kyle Bull. Kyle is the bomb again. He's a YouTuber which I really dearly love. He's maybe my favorite YouTuber out there. Sorry for all the other folks. I love you too as well. Yeah, but he introduced me to this pedal over here through his review of that pedal. I was immediately hooked up because I love 5150s. Those are my favorite amps. And this one actually gets the job really good done. I shoot it out against my Bugera 6262, which sounds really close to the real deal because I modded it a little bit. And it's absolutely astonishing how close you can get. It's, of course, only the preamp section, and of course it's not 100% there, but it gets that type of tone going on in a really convincing fashion. And people have been gushing all over my tones when I'm playing live, so that's a testament to how good this pedal sounds. And I really like that sound. Do you like it? Of course, I have to admit, I'm kind of one-trick pony when it comes to that. I can only do these kind of thrash riffs, and that's the music which I'm playing. I don't need any cleans, I don't need any channel switching, so this is absolutely enough as the core amplifier setup, you know, the boost and the AMT P-Lead. But really awesome unit. I really like it. There are more of these AMT brick pedals, which I was super intrigued in trying out, but so far my money went to all other stuff going out there. Okay, next up, what happens then is this setup is going into this device. This is a do-it-yourself splitter and looper at the same time. So what this does is, this is a looper, so you can turn it on and off, and this activates the delay and the EQ for a lead boost type of tone, and it always, at all times, splits the signal also. And this is where I get my split from, which one goes to the PowerAmp and one goes to the IR loader. More on that in a bit. Now, this the delay which I'm using is I just recently bought it, so I have to look at it. The Tone City Tape Machine, I think it is. Yeah, this is a really cool small delay. It's not anything special, but it's not bad at all. You know, it has a small form factor. It fit in here perfectly, so I'm really happy. What I used before, sorry for screaming, but what I used before was the TC Electronic Nova repeater. This is a really great, versatile delay. It's quite old, but yeah, it has served me well. I have this like 10 years or something, and it never failed on me. I simply love this device. This is awesome. But this is a little bit big, you know, like, look at that, you know, look at that form factor, you know, and then compare it, you know. I can take the boost away, the amp, and the delay, and just have the delay over there. So, This is where technology gets you in 2024. All right. And then as an EQ, I'm using the Joyo band control, or the band controller, I think it's a 10-band EQ. And what I'm doing with that is I'm boosting the signal a little bit, but I'm also pronouncing the mid frequencies so that it cuts a little bit better through in the mix. Okay, now let me just showcase what this sounds like when I engage this lead boost over here. So I'm just gonna play a section off of a song of my band Tempest. So you can hear that the delay is really subtle. I could push it up a little bit more in level. But the loudness jump and the frequencies which I selected are pretty significant. So there is a massive difference in the loudness and how it cuts through in the mix. Of course, it now sounds a little bit boxy, a little bit sharp, but in that band context, it really sounds great. All right, from the splitter over here, because that's the next step, we're going over to two different devices. We're going one time to the Mooer radar. This is an IR loader. Now that usually goes to an DI box, which is on the back side of the pedal. But right now I just took out the cable and ran it through into the interface, so for easier setup. But that DI box would then go to our in-ear monitoring mixer, and that in turn has another output where it can go to the local PA. And the second output is going to this Frankenstein construction over here. Now, this over here is the GPA 100. This is an Class D power amp, which has at max 100 watts, I think at 4 ohms, or 200 watts at 4 ohms, I think. So at 16 ohms, it gets up to 50 watts, and that is plenty loud enough. The cool thing about this is, while there is a little bit of a mid pronunciation when you dial up the volume very high, up to this level over here, which is way loud. Oh wait, so let me take that small little box away. Up to this level, it's pretty much linear and clean. I'm not gonna play right now because that's super loud. I'm gonna have it like at this volume over here, which is louder room volume. So it's enough to annoy your neighbors, and if I would play for an hour or something, they would come up and say, hey, you're a little bit crazy guy, but I can rock out here in the room without any problems. This over here is just a small box where I got my picks over here. So this is cool. Got that to Christmas from good friends of mine. And yeah, this over here is an line isolator. So this is from Palmer. This is, I think, the PLI-01. This is a line isolator. And what this basically does is it takes this input from the split and it isolates the input from the output, and the output just simply goes into the power amp. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is to avoid any kind of ground loop between the power supply of the power amp and the power supply of the pedal board. That way, I'm 100% sure there's no ground loop whatsoever going on over here. And the really cool thing about this power amp in general is it has a 3-band equalizer. You can see that maybe over here. We got bass, mid, and treble. They work pretty much like an depth and presence control, like resonance and presence. And the mid is, you know, just a nice touch where you can sculpt your tone even further. I like to do it on my 2x12 cabinets, for example, that I crank the bass up a little bit, sometimes also the treble, just to give that extra oomph, which I'm not getting out of the 2x12 compared to my 4x12 from Marshall, which I got over there. So I'm super flexible with this setup over here, and I'm super happy. I played like, I would say more than 10 gigs, maybe 15 gigs with this kind of setup. I sometimes replaced this setup over here with, yeah, and now of course has to come the ToneX, you know, like the ToneX at some point in time was here at the heart of my center of my setup over here. Then I took out the noise gate, the equalizer, and all of that stuff. So I basically only had the impulse response loader and the ToneX over here. But personally, first off, the ToneX does have a strange, weird character to it when playing through it, in my opinion. It's not bad at all. It also really replicates the tone of the amplifier, but that feel thing is kind of not as immediate as with this stuff over here, which is analog. You know, you cannot beat that. So the latency, which the ToneX brings in there, and this is barely noticeable, but it's super strange to explain. It could be also that the trim input is simply not set to my likings on ToneX, but I'm recently really starting to dig this again. But you know, in this setup over here, I got everything which I want. I got a delay, I got a super quick noise gate, I got a really good sound. With the ToneX, I have to do all kinds of compromises. I have to use a reverb instead of a delay. The noise gate on the ToneX, I'll say it straight out, hairy donkey balls. It's absolutely sorry to say it that hard, but the noise gate is not good at all. It's super harsh. It clamps super strangely down. And also, which is a huge oversight in my opinion, they did not set up the ToneX that one output can go out with the IR and one can go out without the IR. You can only set it up that one output goes out with the DI and one output goes out with all of the processing, which is a huge oversight in my opinion. And yeah, I was really disappointed about that. So if I would use the ToneX, I'm still bound to using a lot of stuff which is anyways on here on this pedal board to get the optimal sound without any compromises. But the ToneX has its own cool stuff. We're gonna look at that in a different video. For now, I just want to kind of make a snapshot of this pedal board over here because I think this is a very, very valid setup in terms of how it sounds, what functionality it covers, what different scenarios you can achieve with it, and this can give inspiration to a lot of people out there who are also on the verge of actually going for some kind of pedal board related setup. I 100% can recommend, and in order to kind of call it a day, we're just gonna riff a little bit through the mic'd up situation over here. Once again, just gonna play some Tempest riffs on this cool setup. Let's get rockin'. All right, and there you have it. That's my pedalboard setup. Yeah, anno April or end of April 2024. This is, of course, or I assume, is going to radically change as soon as the NAMM player is going to get over here, because the NAMM player checks a lot of boxes and is able to replace a lot of the different stuff over here on the board. I'm really curious to how it's going to live up to the hype which I'm currently experiencing. What do you think of this sound? What kind of different pedalboard setups have you achieved so far, or have at least toyed with in doing? Do you have, you know, like a ToneX pedal? Let's talk. Let's have a little bit of a gear nerdery going on in the comment section. I'm always open to discussing stuff with all kinds of people on the internet, and, you know, on Facebook groups where I'm a member of. Yeah, so thanks to everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something out of this. And yeah, if you like what you saw, of course, consider all of that YouTube stuff, you know, share, subscribe, talk about it, comment, and all of that stuff. I highly appreciate anybody joining in for the next videos. See you then, and until then, keep it metal.